Hello, beloved. How are you? Welcome to Readings with Regina. And I want to give a big shout out to all of my new subscribers. Understand that you are now in the prayer circle because I pray for all of my subscribers and other people every night and every morning. Okay, I'm going to get right into it because I have a lot to cover today. This particular episode starts with a surprise intro. And let me tell you what that surprise intro is going to be. Black Panther Woman, The Political and Spiritual Life of Erica Huggins. I'm going to read some of that book to you just a little because in the book, Dessa Rose, right? Dessa Rose has a baby. Her water breaks when she's on the horse with Harka. They have to get her off of the horse, and then they make a makeshift bed for her on the ground to give birth. This is how Black women, Black enslaved women, sometimes gave birth during enslavement. Now, what does Erica Huggins have to do with that? Well, let me just give you a little backstory about the good sister, the leader, one of the female leaders of the Black Panther Party for self-defense in Los Angeles. When COINTELPRO and Black FBI agents murdered her husband, John Jerome Huggins, also apprentice Bunchy Carter. He was the leader of the Los Angeles branch of the Black Panther Party for self-defense. Look him up. He was a bad brother. If you want to know more about Bunchy and John, read my book, Poetry in the Black Panther Party. I won't go into the subtitle. Point. Once her husband was killed and Bunchy was killed, and Erica, let me show you her again, had just given birth. The pigs killed her husband, and then they arrested all of the Black Panther Party for self-defense members. So they arrested a bunch of women, certainly as well as men. Now, several of the women, not Erica, but Erica had her baby at her breast. Her and her baby went to jail. But other women in the Black Panther Party gave birth inside of a prison. And because Dessa gave birth in a way that was brutal, I wanted you to see the similarities between how sisters of the Black Panther Party for self-defense gave birth in jail. This is a sister named Frances, a Los Angeles Panther. I was an Oakland Panther. This is LA. One of the most difficult situations the women would face involved Frances's labor and subsequent isolation. Months into her imprisonment, Frances gave birth under torturous conditions. Although the medical professionals were aware that Frances required a cesarean section, they opted to prolong her labor for a duration of 23 hours. It was only when her baby boy began to emerge in distress with a deformed head that they finally gave her a cesarean section. As if this was not enough, and I'm even skipping some, as if this was not enough, many FBI agents, police, and matrons were in the labor room. Now, remember now, she's in prison. She's in prison giving birth. She vividly recalled their laughter. They were laughing and making light of the fact that they were just letting me lay there and suffer. It was bad. The state officials took pleasure in her misery as medical professionals denied her timely care when it was most needed. That's how this good sister gave birth in prison in 1969. In the medical wing, I'm skipping some. In the medical wing, Frances did not receive any postnatal care. She was sick, frail, hungry, dehydrated, under the influence of multiple prescription drugs, and now weighed 90 pounds, roughly 40 pounds lighter than on her first day of imprisonment. So I wanted you all to see how members of the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense were treated inside of prison when my sisters gave birth. I wanted you to see that. I wanted you to make that connection between 1969 and the 1850s when Dessa was alive and giving birth to her child. All right. Now, what I'm going to do now is to pick up Dessa Rose. Okay. And remember, Dessa is talking to, well, actually, Dessa is still suffering from delirium. Okay. After having just gave birth, and she gave birth on the road. So she's still suffering from delirium. And Rufel, Miss Rufel, owns the plantation where Harker, Cully, and Nathan brought Dessa. So it's like a maroon colony. Many other runaways and enslaved people are there. So here we go. Dessa Rose. Ada talked as much to herself as she did to Dessa, almost in the same way that the white woman did, never really expecting an answer. Already she seemed to have forgotten that Dessa had spoken. Dessa surrendered to the familiar lassitude. Runaways, Ada, Harker, how many others? And the white woman let them stay? Nursed? Dessa knew the white woman nursed her baby. She had seen her do it. It went against everything she had been taught to think about white women, but to inspect that fact too closely was almost to deny her own existence. That the white woman had let them stay, even that was almost too big to think about. Sometimes it seemed to Dessa that she was drowning in milky skin, ensnared by red hair. There was a small mole on the white woman's forehead, just above one sandy eyebrow. She smelled faintly of some scent that Dessa couldn't place. Why had they all run here? Because she let them stay? Why had she let them stay? The white woman was sewing this time, setting big, careless stitches in a white cloth draped over her knees. Against her will, Dessa listened. And this is Miss Rufel talking now. Night of the St. Cecilia dinner, and of course, Mammy had to dress Mother and me for that. No white woman like this had ever figured in Mammy's conversations, Dessa thought drowsily, and this would have been something to talk about. Dinner and gloves, gowns, not just plain dresses? Miss Rufel speaking. All by myself, and scared too. The Winstons was related to royalty, or maybe it was only just a night. The white woman paused a moment. Now, often as Daphne told it, you'd think I'd know it by heart. She shook her head and laughed softly. Mammy would know it. Maybe, Dessa thought, with a sudden pang. Mammy hadn't known about Cain, about Master selling Jeter. Mammy doubted that when it all happened so long ago. Wasn't no one alive now who witnessed it. I seen it, Dessa started to say. Master sold Jeter to the trader, same as Mistress sold me. But the white woman continued without pause. This is Miss Rufel speaking. The pretty clothes, well, I know Mammy didn't know a thing about history, but I knew she was right about the clothes. She used to dress me so pretty. Even the Reynolds girls and their daddy owned the bank. Everyone said that they wore drawers made out of French silk. They used to admire my clothes. Dessa stared at the white woman. She was crazy, making up this whole thing. Like Miss Rufel. Pretend their clothes came from a fashionable boutique. But I always said, oh, this a little something. Mammy ran it up for me. So when I walked into the Great Hall at Winston, I had on a dress that Mammy made, and it was Mammy's. Wasn't no Mammy to it. The words burst from Dessa. She knew even as she said it what the white woman meant. Mammy was a servant, a slave, who had nursed the white woman as Carrie had nursed young mistress's baby before it died. But goaded by the white woman's open mouth stare, she continued, Mammy ain't made you nothing. Why, she, the white woman stopped, confused. Hurt seemed to spread like a red stain across her face. Seeing it, Dessa lashed out again. You don't even know Mammy. I do, the white woman said indignantly. Papa gave her. Mammy lived on the Bourne plantation near Simeon on the Buford River, McAllen County. This was what they had told her to say if some white woman or some white person had ever asked them their name and what place they belonged to. The white woman gaped like a fish. Dessa thought contemptuously, just like a fish out of water. Anybody could make this white woman's wits go gathering. My, my, my mammy, the white woman sputtered. The words exploded inside Dessa. Your mammy never had that white baby taken Jessup's place with Carrie. Your mammy, no white girl could ever have taken her place in Mammy's bosom. No one. You ain't got no mammy, she snapped. I do. The white woman was shouting now, the white cloth crushed in her trembling hands. All you know about is this kind of sleeve and that kind of bonnet and some party here and some party there. Didn't you have no peoples where you live? Mammy ain't nobody's name, not they real one. Okay, I'm gonna stop here. Now, that's Dessa and Miss Rufel having it out. Okay, this next book I'm going to read is Incidents in a Life of a Slave Girl. This was written in 1858 and published in 1861. Now, to bring my new readers up to date, my new subscribers, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl is about Linda Brent, and this is her uncle, but he's like her brother. He beat his master, so he ran away, but he was caught and he was brought back and put in jail. And I'm gonna pick up where Linda and her grandmother, who is Benjamin's mother, they go to the jail to visit him. The jailer does let them come in because they bring him treats and they've known him for a long time. All right. As his food was of the coarsest kind, we carried him as often as possible a warm supper, accompanied with some little luxury for the jailer. 3 months elapsed, and there was no prospect of release or of a purchaser. One day he was heard to sing and laugh. This piece of indecorum was told to his master, and the overseer was ordered to rechain him. He was now confined in an apartment with other prisoners, who were covered with filthy rags. Benjamin was chained near them, and was soon covered with vermin. He worked at the chains till he succeeded in getting out of them. He passed them through the bars of the window with the request that they should be taken to his master, and he should be informed that he was covered with vermin. This audacity was punished with heavier chains and prohibition of our visits. My grandmother continued to send him fresh changes of clothes. The old ones were burned up. The last night we saw him in jail, his mother still begged him to send for his master and beg his master's pardon. Neither persuasion nor argument could turn him from his purpose. He calmly answered, I am waiting his time. Those chains were mournful to hear. Another 3 months passed, and Benjamin left his prison walls. We that loved him waited to bid him a long and a last farewell. A slave trader had bought him. You remember I told you what price he bought when 10 years of age? Now he was more than 20 years old and sold for $300. The master had been blind to his own interests. Long confinement had made Benjamin's face too pale, his form too thin, moreover. The trader had heard something of his character, and it did not strike him as suitable for a slave. He said he would give any price if the handsome lad was a girl. We thank God that he was not. Now, those of you who are listening to this, I want you to think about this particular line again. He said he would give any price of the handsome lad if he was a girl. We thank God that he was not. Now, why would they say that about a girl, an enslaved girl? Now, I could give you the answer, but I want you to think about it. Could you have seen that mother clinging to her child when they fastened the irons upon his wrists? Could you have heard her heart-rending groans and seen her bloodshot eyes wander wildly from face to face, vainly pleading for mercy? Could you have witnessed that scene as I saw it? Remember, this is a true story, y'all. You would exclaim, slavery is damnable. Benjamin, her youngest, her pet, was forever gone. She could not realize it. She had an interview with the trader for the purpose of ascertaining if Benjamin could be purchased. She was told it was impossible, as he had given bonds not to sell him till he was out of the state. He promised that he would not sell him till he reached New Orleans. With a strong arm and unvaried trust, my grandmother began her work of love. Benjamin must be free. You know what we used to sing? Huey must be free. Free Huey. Huey must be free. Free Huey. Huey must be free. So when I saw this for the first time, Benjamin must be free, and this was written way over a century ago, look at those connections, my brothers and sisters. If she succeeded, she knew they would still be separated, but the sacrifice was not too great. Day and night she labored. The trader's price would treble that he gave, but she was not discouraged. She employed a lawyer to write to a gentleman whom she knew in New Orleans. She begged him to interest himself for Benjamin, and he willingly favored her request. When he saw Benjamin and stated his business, he thanked him, but still he preferred to wait a while before making the trader an offer. He knew he had tried to obtain a high price for him and had invariably failed. This encouraged him to make another effort for freedom. So one morning, long before day, Benjamin was missing. He was riding over the blue billows, bound for Baltimore. Now let me explain this as well to you too. Benjamin's grandmother was an enslaved woman. She had been promised her freedom, but when the master died, she was picked up and resold. But what she did, not only was she a slave for her mistress and master, but she started her own bakery. Yes, she did. And she started selling her cakes and cookies and crackers to the townspeople. So the townspeople got to know her, respect her. And what Linda Brent's grandmother did was to save her money. She saved it because she wanted to purchase her children. Okay? Why am I telling you this? I am telling you this, brothers and sisters. Don't just have a job where you work for some white folks. Don't do that. Make another job for yourself in this country. Do not depend on one paycheck. Because I want us to think more creatively. One of the reasons that I am actually reading to you, because I know that Reading enhances the brain. It makes the brain work in a particular way that is healthy, not just for the intellectualism of the brain, but of the body too. Okay? So understand readings with Regina. Understand the importance of reading, not just for yourself, but you want to read to enhance your intellectualism so that you can share it with other brothers and sisters. All of that is exceedingly important. Now, the last book I'm going to read for today is Clotel. Okay, and what has happened? There have been runaways. This is an advertisement for runaways, okay? And those runaways were caught. They were caught. And what happened was this: one of the runaways fought back. He fought back. And in his fighting back, this is what the white folks decided. For that, he must be made an example on their arrival home. Because he resisted, a mob was collected together and a lynch court was held to determine what was best to be done with the Negro. Now, this is Clotel. This is written in 1853. This is not a movie. This is for real. And I want you all to understand that. The body was taken and chained to a tree immediately on the banks of the Mississippi, on what is called Union Point. Faggots were then collected and piled around him, to which he appeared quite indifferent. When the work was completed, he was asked what he had to say. He then warned all to take example by him and asked the prayers of all around. He then called for a drink of water, which was handed to him. He drank it and said, "Now set fire. I am ready to go in peace." The torches were lit and placed in the pile, which soon ignited. He watched unmoved the curling flame that grew until it began to entwine itself around and feed upon his body. Then he sent forth cries of agony painful to the ear, begging someone to blow his brains out. At the same time, surging with almost superhuman strength until the staple with which the chain was fastened to the tree drew out, and he leaped from the burning pile. At that moment, the sharp ringing of several rifles was heard. The body of the Negro fell, a corpse, on the ground. He was picked up by some 2 or 3 and again thrown into the fire and consumed, not a vestige remaining to show that such a being ever existed. Nearly 4,000 slaves were collected from the plantations in the neighborhood to witness this. Now, check that out. Nearly 4,000 slaves, they got gathered up, men, women, and children. They wanted those enslaved people to see what happens, right, to somebody who rebels. This is what they wanted those enslaved people to view. And they wanted that because this, of course, is how you make enslaved people, how you make an enslaved population. Numerous speeches were made by the magistrates and ministers of religion to the large concourse of slaves, warning them and telling them that the same fate awaited them if they should prove rebellious to their owners. There are hundreds of Negroes who run away and live in the woods. Some take refuge in the swamps because they are less frequented by human beings. Do you understand that some of our ancestors would live in the swamps where the alligators were? They did this to avoid slavery. That is how horrible slavery was. A Natchez newspaper gave the following account of the hiding place of a slave who had just been captured. A runaway's den was discovered on Sunday near the Washington Spring in a little patch of woods where it had been for several months so artfully concealed underground. Our people made homes underground during slavery, that it was detected only by accident, though in sight of 2 or 3 houses and near the road and fields where there has been constant daily passing. The entrance was concealed by a pile of pine straw representing a hog bed, which being removed discovered a trap door and steps that led to a room about 6 feet square, comfortably sealed with plank containing a small fireplace. Can you imagine this? The flue of which was ingeniously conducted above ground and concealed by the straw. The inmates took the alarm and made their escape, but Mr. Adams and his excellent dogs, y'all know about the dogs. I didn't show y'all the dogs before. I ain't gonna show them to you again. Excellent dogs being put upon the trail soon ran down and secured one of them, which proved to be a Negro fellow who had been out for about a year. He stated that the other occupant was a woman who had been a runaway. So you see what is happening here, my people. Why I'm reading this and why it may be difficult for you to even hear this or even want to hear this. Let the difficulty seep in. Why? Because this is your history. You have to go back to come forward. You cannot progress or progress adequately if you cover this up. Understand that. And Black people were enslaved for more than 2 centuries, maybe 2.5, maybe 3. Okay? It depends on who you're reading. But it was definitely more than 100 or even 200 years. You see what I'm saying? And if you rebelled, you could be burned at the stake, like the gentleman that I just mentioned. You certainly were jailed. And understand why Benjamin was jailed. Benjamin was jailed because he fought back against his master. See, you weren't supposed to raise a fist against your enslaver. The law permitted that if you struck back at your enslaver, you would be put in jail. And I want you to remember this too, my people, before I sign off today. The Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, what do you think we stood up against? Why do you think Huey Newton and Bobby Seale created it? Why do you think both of those brothers went to jail different times? Why do you think that they created chapters that went all across the United States? Because we wanted to tell the police who were beating us in front of family members, in front of friends, that they had to stop that they would receive some consequences. That is the only way to deal with power. Frederick Douglass said it, power concedes to nothing but another powerful force. We gave our lives. Some were jailed. I wasn't. I'm glad. But that's why I'm out here speaking now. And I want everybody who can hear the sound of my voice, look into the Black political prisoners right now. Look into your political prisoners right now. See what you could do to be helpful to political prisoners right now. Mumia Abu Jamal is still in prison. He's done more than 30 years. That's inhumane. Fred Burton, still in prison. Political prisoners. Go to the Jericho movement. Look it up. Look it up. Do not separate yourself from the heroes of the 1960s who threw off all fear and said, we are not going to be bullied any longer. And I want you to learn how to, again, think creatively. Don't just think on the level in this United States. of getting a gig, getting a job, go higher with your intellectualism. Just like some of the enslaved people did who were able to make a way out of no way. All right. Another thing I want to say too that I've noticed because of the technology of today, not enough of you are writing. I really want you to write, write a letter to somebody that you like or dislike. Write. Have your children write. Have your children look at my videos. I didn't make these to just sit around. These are teaching tools. I am actually reading to you literature that was written by our ancestors who wanted you to know their story. Well, my brothers and sisters, it's always good to be with you, and I will see you again, same time, same place, this coming Thursday. And in the meantime, in between time, take really good care of yourself and know that I love you dearly. Bye now.